Hello everyone, this is my review of Last Epoch after playing a little over 100 hours. So it's an action role-playing game, or ARPG, similar to Diablo and Path of Exile. I'd say it's a lot better than Diablo and a lot closer to PoE, but just not as terribly complex with, the skill tree of PoE is just a little too much for a lot of people. So this game's a lot more digestible, easily manageable. So yeah, let's get right into it. I'll have some background footage over here while I do the review. So yeah, what can I talk about first? So the price of the game isn't terrible. For example, a lot of games are like $70 these days, $60 at least, and Last Epoch's only $35. And for the amount of content that you get, which is, at least, I'd say at least 50 hours, and if you plan to play more characters, you might be going like even higher than that. You might be going up to 100 hours or more. So I'd say, the price is pretty fair for what you're getting. And the other thing about pricing is the game only has, it has microtransactions, but they're only cosmetic. So if you go to the shop, pretty much everything is just cosmetic here. And that's really, really nice. So there's no pay to win at all. Unlike some games like oh god, what was that Korean game? Oh, Lost Ark. Yeah. So unlike Lost Ark and some other games, there's absolutely no pay to win in Last Epoch, which is really, really nice. The other thing is, compared to Path of Exile, like, you have to pay for stash tabs in that game, whereas in Last Epoch you don't pay for stash tabs at all. You just use the in-game gold, and as you can see, I have like over 1 million gold just from playing the game, and you get so much of it. And just creating a stash tab only costs like, I don't know, like maybe a couple thousand gold. Like, the more that you create, the more it costs, but it's really, really easy to get gold, so it's not a big deal at all. The next thing I wanted to talk about are the visuals. Like, as you can see, there's like just an array of colors here, and it's really just nice and crisp. Like, for example, you see this spell Chthonic Fissure, like there's skeletons and the undead coming out of this fissure that was created in the ground. It's really nice. It's very crisp and really, really good graphics in my opinion. They're very satisfying to cast. It's very satisfying to cast these spells, and it's very like evident what's going on the screen too. It's not too much to the point where you don't even know what's happening. Sometimes that can be a huge issue in some games. So you kind of clearly know what's going on. You can see the numbers as well. And they're just very crisp. I don't know, the only word I can think of is crisp. So yeah, it's like a visual feast, you know what I mean? Especially a class like this with Chthonic Fissure. Other classes will have their own special thing, but just the background of the game too, you see these like light purples and everything, and it's really nice. There's lots of different backgrounds because, the game is called Last Epoch because you travel through time, through many different eras or epochs, hence the name. So there's like the Imperial era, the Ruin era, Divine era, Ancient era, where there's like dinosaurs and shit. So yeah, the game has a lot of different backgrounds and really nice visuals in my opinion. Are they the best, ever? No, but it's just nice. It's nice for what it is. Especially coming from a studio that doesn't, have millions and millions of dollars to spend. The next thing I wanted to talk about was sound design. So for example, like when I cast this Chthonic Fissure, you hear that like opening of the ground? It just sounds really, really nice, satisfying. A lot of spells will have that one kind of just sound that keeps you coming back. And you kind of need to have that in a game where you are fighting thousands and thousands of mobs. You need something that's satisfying, that will kind of allow you to fight that many monsters over and over again without getting bored. The other thing is like there's like really nice clangs when swords are swinging, or when a monster hits into you. The voice acting is pretty good. Some of them are a little off. You can kind of tell some of them are not the best, but overall, honestly, the voice acting is great. The characters will repeat the same thing. For example, my character will say like, death will not take me. She'll keep saying that in different ways. So, I think that's kind of common, though, among a lot of ARPGs, is the character repeating similar phrases over and over again. So it is what it is. The sound design is really, really good, though. You can hear birds in the background, the rain, all of your spells, your characters, different phrases. You can hear the monsters as well. Sometimes they'll just, like, if there's undead monsters, they'll be saying, like come to us or something like that. They'll be trying to grab you. It's really nice. It's immersive. The music, I'd say the music's pretty good. There's some nice like combination of peaceful, kind of quiet music, as well as exciting music. Like during boss fights, there is some pretty good music. It's not super memorable. I'll say the most memorable piece of music is the actual opening sequence of the game. Like when you first boot up the game, that song is really, really memorable. So yeah, it's pretty good. The story, I'll be quite honest, I don't remember too much of it. The opening sequence, like the beginning cinematic, grabbed my attention, but everything after that wasn't that exciting. I know the general gist of the story, but I think they could really improve on this. Like, they could definitely make it a lot better, more interesting. Like, for example, how many of you guys actually remember any of the NPCs that you talked to? Because I definitely don't. Like, a lot of them were just pretty generic and boring. So I think, like, having better character development, more interesting characters would definitely give the game a better story in general. So another thing is the skill tree, which is really, really fantastic. So you have 5 spells that you can use at the top here, and you have all these different spells that you can choose from. And every single spell that you put on your bar here has like this massive skill tree. You start in the middle and you can go out to any branch that you want. But of course you can only spend like 20 points or so for each skill. So there's a huge variety of builds and player choice. I really love that. The only thing I don't like is, like, if you respec, for example, you can either like remove all the points and then you have to start at the minimal level, or you can remove point by 1 and then you have to level it up again. So I just wish this was free and you didn't need to re-level it. It's not a big deal, like, to re-level it, but still, like, if it's not a big deal, then why waste the player's time doing that? Just let us like respec as much as we want without any cost or anything. But that's kind of like besides the point. Like, my overall like review of the skill tree is that it's amazing. Like, making it like this where each spell itself can be customizable. Like this, for example, my chaos bolts can be frost, or I can make them bleed, or I can make certain spells chain into each other. So like my chthonic fissure creates like that rupture in the ground, and then it casts chaos bolts, and then those chaos bolts are per freeze rate it'll change the damage, and I can also make it like physical damage over time, and etc, etc. So then I can make my build like it's crazy. Things just chain into each other. So the chthonic fissure can also cast harvest. And then, so basically then the chthonic fissure is also using chaos bolts and harvest, and the harvest also increases your bleed chance. So it's just a lot of things. There's many interactions which are really cool, similar to PoE, but just not as complex. And it's really fun. It's really cool what people can do with the skill tree. Let me see. Besides that, yeah, there's many awesome builds that you can play with. Pretty much every subclass will have multiple builds that are good. You can't really go wrong for the most part. And even if you go wrong, you'll still be able to complete most of the content, quote unquote wrong, as per the quote unquote meta. So that brings me to like items. So items are pretty simple for the most part, and this is like the main appeal of ARPGs is getting really good loot, as well as crafting. Like obviously everyone wants really good loot, and Last Epoch makes it easier to achieve because when you pick, for example, one of these monoliths and you go into it, you can every little node that you pick will tell you what you're going to get at the end, like an amulet, or you're going to get a weapon or a piece of armor. So it lets you target farm the gear that you want. In addition to that, there's also the Circle of Fortune, which will allow you to target farm even more, but I'll get into that later. But pretty much the itemization of the game is really, really good. Lets you target farm, but I think that's a huge plus in my book compared to other games where it's just absolutely random what you drop on the ground. And the items themselves aren't that complicated. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you have implicits and explicits. It's not that hard to understand. And pretty much everything will have an explanation. If you just hold Alt over it, it'll explain what it does. In addition to that, if you go in your character screen over here, you can just hover over things and it'll explain what's going on. You know, it'll explain dodge, armor, block chance, block effectiveness. What's the difference between block chance and effectiveness? You know, this and that. So pretty much everything's explained there, and there's a massive guide in the game as well. So you just go to game guide and you can read like all of this is just explained here. You just take some time to read it and everything will make sense. So besides that, you know, crafting is like a 10 out of 10 experience in my opinion. If you just throw something in the forge, you can craft anywhere, anytime. You just press the F key and you throw in, and like you can make a decent item into a great item pretty easily. So there's 4 different like things that you can craft, and it'll show you which one you can craft, and it's all based on forging potential. So it's pretty straightforward concept. Like let's say you have 40 forging potential, that means, you know, every time you craft something, your forging potential will go down a little bit if unless it's like a critical success or whatever. And then once you get to 0 forging potential, you can't craft anymore. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. You just hope you get lucky and you just get the runes and stuff that you need. And then if you have an item that you want to be able to use its explicits or implicits, you just use this rune of shattering and it'll destroy it and it'll create these affix shards, and then you can use that on the next item that you want. So it's not that bad at all. And making legendary items is also pretty hype. So yeah, the crafting experience, the items is really, really good in this game. The factions is something new that came out with the 1.0 release, and this includes the Circle of Fortune. So there's 2 factions, Circle of Fortune and the Merchants Guild. So Circle of Fortune is more like, it's like you're kind of playing solo self-found. Like you can't trade with other players, but you get like massive amounts of items now. Like enemies have 35% chance of dropping twice as many items. You get these runes of ascendance, which are really good. When an idol drops, there's 25% chance for 2 more to drop. You know, affixes are 50% more likely to be, you know, uniques are twice as likely to have legendary potential. It's really, really good. Tier 7 affixes. Just really, really good. And you can get this pretty easily. Like I'm already rank 6. I mean, getting to rank 10 will take a long time, but then again, that's something to work towards. And if you go for Merchant's Guild, then you can go into this bazaar where it's just this massive, like, trading zone, kind of similar to, like, if you played RuneScape, the Grand Exchange, except everything is kind of separated. So, like, there's, like, an amulet section and then, like, a leg armor section, etc. So that's really nice too. I mean, it's just like you can't go wrong. I would say either one of these is really great, and I like that they gave the player the choice to do either one. And then I guess I can go into the end game. So the end game is this Monolith of Fate, and you know there's all these different ones here, and like the left side will reward you with certain things, and the right side will reward you with certain things like, you know, mana, etc. You get to choose after you beat it. So you go through like a bunch of nodes, you accumulate stability, and once you get enough stability, you can fight the boss of that monolith. And that's pretty much it. You get a reward in the end and you finish that monolith. So after completing them all, you get to do empowered monoliths, which is when you get to 100 corruption. So it's nice, I'd say. It's pretty fun, but once you complete all the monoliths and you start grinding corruption, like grinding corruption kind of sucks. because it just takes too long to grind. For example, if you start doing the monolith, the empowered monolith, you'd have to defeat the boss, I think, at least 2 or 3 times, and then you can fight the Oribus, or you can just fight him straight away. Either way, you're not going to get that much corruption. You're probably going to get like plus 15 or 20 corruption, and you're starting with 100. People say like the quote-unquote true endgame doesn't start until you get like to 300 corruption or 600 corruption or like 1,000 corruption is when it gets really hard. What corruption does is it scales the enemy's health and makes them hit harder as well. So they hit harder and they have more health. So it's like, and they drop better items, you know, so it's like it's kind of infinitely scaling. So the problem is like you just keep doing the same monoliths and nodes again and again, and that can be a little boring, and just the speed at which you like accumulate corruption is too slow in my opinion. So I hope they can like fix that. And the other thing that you can do in the end of the game is these dungeons. So there's like different tiers of dungeon, tier 3 and 4, and there's like a really pretty challenging boss at the end of them. I think there's at least 4 or 5 dungeons, and the problem with the dungeons is that if you die in the dungeon, you like it's over. Like you only get one chance. If you die, it deletes your key, so you need a key to get into the dungeon. It deletes your key and you restart from the beginning. So I think it's a little too punishing. If they gave you at least like 2 or 3 lives or chances, you know, and maybe like if you die you get less rewards, but at least give the player like 2 or 3 chances, and if you don't die then you get the most amount of rewards. But if you die once or twice you get like less rewards, but just don't completely like make someone restart from the beginning. I think that's just too punishing. And then the other thing that you can do in endgame is arena, and arena is just like, it's nice, but it's just like an endless wave after wave of fighting enemies. There's not really any big rewards from it besides flexing, I guess, on people on like the leaderboards. So yeah, I think it's pretty lacking. The endgame's pretty lacking in Last Epoch compared to Path of Exile. Again, it's like an unfair comparison because Path of Exile's been out for like a decade, so you can't really compare the two like head on like that. But you know, it is what it is. Like the developers of Last Epoch are currently working on making pinnacle boss content as we speak. Like they released like some type of like newsletter thing where they said they're trying to make more bosses and more endgame content. So I'm looking forward to coming back to Last Epoch as soon as they release that stuff. You know, I might keep playing on this Warlock, which has been really fun, or I might make a new character. But anyways, in conclusion, you know, Last Epoch is just one of the best ARPGs I've ever played. Fantastic build design, player-friendly, simple game design, you know, infinite stash tabs, etc. The visuals are great, and I had a blast playing it. I definitely recommend it to any fan of ARPGs. And, you know, let me know what you guys think about Last Epoch. Subscribe for more content, and, you know, like the video if you like it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.